Hello world from Oktopost headquarters. This is Radically Transparent, Oktopost's original podcast show on B2B marketing now. I'm Jennifer Gutman, Director of Social Strategy, and in most episodes of this podcast, we'll feature B2B marketing leaders who will share their radically transparent truths behind being a modern-day marketer or modern-day sales leader and what it takes to grow ideas, take risks, and impact change. Joining me on this episode of Radically Transparent is Kevin Mulrane, VP Sales at ProQuo AI. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I got to be honest, I was looking forward to this so much in my calendar, so I'm so glad that we're here today.
Me too, and I love when guests tell me they're looking forward to this podcast because not many people are excited to get radically transparent publicly, but you are. So
let's do it.
So that's great. So listen, I know I've done my due diligence and I've checked out your LinkedIn quite a few times before this interview. And I know that you're an experienced revenue leader. I love that you've written that. Who doesn't need one of those at their company? And if anyone listening is looking for an example of awesome LinkedIn profiles, I'm shouting this out. Please check out Kevin's because it's just phenomenal. You feel like you know him in the first glance, and you had me hooked. And I have to say that on this show, and we'll definitely get into all of this and why I'm bringing this up a little bit later on. But to start off, I'm going to throw you an easy, radically transparent curveball. So I actually see you went to Moravian College back in the day. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Right? Gotta love that LinkedIn. So I actually went to school at Muhlenberg, which is not too far from Moravian.
No way.
Yeah. So once a mule, always a mule. What was your mascot, by the way?
We were the Greyhounds.
That's right.
Yep, go Hounds.
Cool. So I got excited when I saw that. But now for that curveball, I was hoping that you could tell us a little bit. I know you have a very unique journey and background. If you can give us a look or glimpse into that professional journey and how you actually found yourself as VP Sales at ProQuo AI.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think if you looked at my first 6 to 12 months in sales, I questioned it every single day. Like, is this for me? Am I going to enjoy this? Am I going to be able to make a career out of this? Like all of that kind of great stuff. But I think just through perseverance and I started to find, ways that I took, I applied things in my personal life into my professional life. And I started to find growth and progress. And I think for my personality is all about growth and getting better. And I just started to see that building. And so, I think, like a lot of people, I fell into sales. I wasn't this, in college, like want to be a salesman. Like I didn't, it wasn't on my radar necessarily. So I fell into it, questioned it every day for a good year probably, and then started to really find that I was like, hey, I think I'm actually pretty good at this thing. But more importantly, I found that I was a lot more passionate and I found it a lot more rewarding when I started to see people that I gave like coaching tips to, or I was sort of like mentoring. When I started to see them succeed, I was getting really, really excited. And so I knew that going on this path towards, leadership and coaching and management was more of the path. Like I felt like I was a better coach than a player. And so that's what I was passionate about and found really rewarding. And, throughout my career, I just started to find, blending this art and science approach to growing and building teams was really what I found to be fun and exciting. And I thought that I was pretty good at. So, I think that's kind of like what my journey consists of, working with early stage, companies and trying to figure out how do we grow the revenue model? How do we grow the teams? And for me, like I said, I think what I get excited about with it is just seeing the opportunity that we create for people and seeing their growth. So that's a bit of my background and my journey.
I think that is definitely, as someone who's also been in sales for 10 years before moving over to the dark side of marketing, I definitely, I can relate to everything you've said about that sales journey. But I also know in sales, there comes a lot of anxiety or stress and a lot of sleepless nights because there's a lot to think about. It's not, some people, like you said, you didn't just, maybe you fell into it, but it's not necessarily the easiest of professions. And so what I'd be curious to know is what keeps you up at night professionally in this role, in the sales journey?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And I think that that's also a stigma about sales, that it doesn't have to be that way. I think a lot of sales roles, it can be that way, but I don't think it actually has to be that way. I think for me, what keeps me up at night is probably twofold. One, because I found this niche, and I really enjoy the early days of early startup companies. I think what keeps me up at night is, am I doing everything I can to help grow the business, right? Like we have, there's obviously like financial and revenue goals and things that we need to achieve. And so I think it's just, what keeps me up at night is, am I doing everything I can, but am I prioritizing my time on the right tasks? Because I've seen it firsthand. It's super easy to try and, as I put it, like boil the ocean, right? Like you can try and do so many different things. But I think the prioritization is what I found to be really, really important for me. Mm-hmm. I think that's one. And then the other is, am I doing everything I can for my teams? Am I supporting them in the best way possible? Both from a professional standpoint, but from a personal standpoint as well. And am I, I guess, keeping up my commitment of what I make to them when I bring somebody onto the team?
So that's interesting. And I think as a leader, I mean, it's nice to hear someone say that you really are you looking out for your team. So that kind of leads me to my next question, which is, what are your expectations of yourself as a VP sales? I know you're on the newer side at your organization at the moment, and we're still in the midst of a pandemic. So coming in and leading a team, what are your expectations for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think for where I'm at, and again, I'm about a month into being at a new company, which has been an amazing first month. But I think for where I'm at today, it's one, just bringing the effort and the energy every single day. I think I'm building relationships with new coworkers, new teams. I've never been onboarded into a new company, in a virtual environment. And so,
how's that going for you? What's happening? What does it feel like?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I didn't have to, like the whole pressure of like my first day of work outfit was completely out the window.
I mean, did you wear pants? I mean, like what?
Pants were on, but they were definitely sweatpants. No, but it's been different. But I think, it's easy to get your head down and just like focus on your thing. And I think building internal relationships is so important. And so that's been a big focus for me, especially too. I mean, we're a global organization. And so we're very small here in the US. We've got offices in the UK, also within South Africa. And so for me, it's been all about like, how do I build those relationships with people that are in a radically different time zone? Mm-hmm. It's about, it's finding that balance of learning and absorbing information, but at the same time, I was hired to, identify ways to make things happen better or more efficient, or, so I'm finding that balance of, hey, I've done this in the past. This might be a good way of doing things, but at the same time, not coming in and being like, we're going to change this and this. Like nobody wants to work with that person, right?
Nobody does.
So it's finding that balance, Yeah, I think, like I said, like it's bringing a good energy every single day, right? Like everyone working within, like I'm in these four walls for too long every single day. But I think it's really tough. Like everyone's in a little bit of a different environment and situation. So all of the interactions just in a way try and make, I don't want to say necessarily make memorable, but make it positive, right? Even if it's a quick 15-minute stand up with your sales team, like bring energy, make that positive, make them want to leave that meeting and just feel good about what they're doing. So there's a lot to unpack there, but I think those are probably some of the things that are very much top of mind for me.
Is there something you do in your sales meeting that you can share with us that really gets everybody motivated or pumped up and ready for the day?
That's a good question. You know what? I think I'm not a big rah-rah guy, right? Like, and I think, but what I think I try to do is I try and listen. I try and be very much a human. Cause I think the sales meetings of go do this and go do that, like kind of barking orders. So I try to make it very collaborative, I guess is what I try to achieve. I think it's an opportunity for everyone to have a voice and share ideas. And for me, us building out our strategy on whether, our massive US sales strategy or even what we're going to accomplish this week, having buy-in across the entire team is so important. So I think just finding ways to make the team feel involved, that they have a voice, that they're a part of the strategy, that, giving them ownership in that is what I try. Because I think the big hype rah-rah stuff, it's almost like it's just like a quick, strong cup of coffee and then it wears out, right? Like I try to think about what are the things I can do to keep the team engaged that's going to be a little bit more long-term as opposed to like a quick spike.
I like it. I like it a lot. So put your coffees down and what we're going to think long-term. And that actually, okay. So thinking long-term, right? I know you're addicted to growth. And I did have a listen to, you have a podcast, right? Keep Me Honest there.
Yes. The Addicted to Growth show. Yep.
Right. Okay. So it's actually called Addicted to Growth. And it's a fantastic podcast. And one of the things that I had learned from your podcast and heard on your podcast, which is why I was personally so excited to have you on our show, is that you had stated that, quote, "We are seeing sales reps become better marketers and marketers become better at sales." And what I love so much about that statement and that acknowledgement is that the traditional mindset and relationship between sales and marketing, which is usually one of bad blood or rivals, you call it out and you talk about how in the modern day, in 2021, the teams are much more aligned than ever before. And I love how you phrase that. And I was hoping maybe we could talk a little bit about some of the advice or hacks or the do's and the don'ts as a sales professional that you see when it comes to interacting with marketers, because I know a lot of marketers are listening in, number one. And number two, what are some of the trends that you're seeing in terms of sales becoming better at marketing, and how can marketers better help sales in that sense?
Yeah, it's a really interesting topic that I really enjoy diving into. And so, I think first and foremost is going to be some simple things like, alignment on the right and most important metrics, right? Like gone are the days where it's like MQLs for marketing and revenue for sales. The reason that I also too, very often I'll use the word revenue when I'm talking about sales and marketing, or even just when it comes to like this commercial side of the business, is because I think that that's also part of it. I think marketing and sales need to almost come under this umbrella, whether you think you should call it revenue or it's your go-to-market team, whatever you want to call it. But I think there has to be more of a, revenue umbrella to say like, these are the two teams that are responsible for going to achieve the commercial success of the business. I think in a way too, you're seeing sales like so for instance, right? Sales becoming more of marketers. You see it a lot with social posting, right? Sales is out there creating a lot of their own content. They're trying to educate their buyers. They're trying to build awareness within who their ICP is. And so, that's like a new sort of marketing related task. And so I think what's really important, whether you're a marketer with sales or sales with marketing, like ride shotgun for a day with a marketer, right? If you're a salesperson, get into the marketer's world, see what they're doing every single day. When you're a marketer, if you're responsible for generating leads for the sales team, sit on sales calls, call the leads yourself, right? Like literally put yourself.
Would you trust a marketer to call one of your leads?
But I think that's where we have to get to, right?
Interesting.
Right. And I think there's so much, because how's the marketer going to learn? Like, how is the marketer really going to understand the output of their efforts unless they're seeing it and they're talking to leads?
Maybe we need like a new LinkedIn hashtag challenge of some sort to make this a reality. But that is actually a fascinating idea. And I never even thought, as new marketing members are joining our team, to have them participate as an active participant in a sales call. I think that is a huge game changer, a big ask, but a fascinating learning experience.
And it is like, it's a little new and it's a little scary, right? But how best are you going to understand the output, right? Like, especially as a content marketer, you're creating so much content that's supposed to increase demand and create these sales ready leads. Until you talk with them, how are you going to know? right? And so I think there's just elements of the role that you can collaborate and both be in the trenches with, right? Both be side by side doing the job. And I think that's where, that's kind of like a hack, I guess, right? Like what are little
Love
things
it.
you can do to drive the team to collaborate? And on the flip side, right? A lot of brands are so particular on what's being put out on social media for tone of voice, for consistency, all that kind of stuff, and that makes total sense. So have a salesperson partner up with a content marketer, and once a week for 30 minutes, talk through content ideas for the following week, right? And if you can just start to see them actually partner on a project, work together, the salesperson posts it, they're starting to get more engagement, more views. It's helped moving things through the pipeline faster. That's a shared win. Yeah. So I think that's another thing, like circle that one, right? Shared win, finding ways between sales and marketing to collaborate on something that they can both go and say, hey, it was a success. And it's not because sales did this or marketing did this. It's because we did this together.
Exactly. And for anyone, you may be hearing a small toddler crying in the back. He is, if you do hear that, he's negotiating. He's learning his negotiation sales skills from his very business-oriented parents, strong-willed. So that's what you're hearing if you do hear that in the back. But with that, I wanted to touch on something, you said earlier on in the conversation about, right now, a lot of sales are doing a lot more, if you will, social selling, and put that in air quotes. And the reason, right, is because today it's like, okay, social selling is technically just selling, right? Like if you're going to go learn about someone, you look at their LinkedIn profile, like I did before you came on the show, to try to learn as much about your guest or your prospect or your customer as humanly possible so that you can really have an authentic, meaningful conversation when you get the opportunity. And from a sales perspective, and I think what you touched on was very interesting, and I would put a little star next to it if anybody's listening with a notebook, about the fact that sales is now turning to social media to, in this, write and explain or put things out on social to build relationships and get people interested, top of funnel, if you will, from the marketing lingo, but also drive them through a sales funnel. What role do you see, now that you're sitting in VP sales chairs, what role do you see social media playing to help hit quota, to help drive sales through the funnel? Is it effective? And how have you incorporated that into your sales playbook?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's a strategy that I've put a lot of work into, even with my previous teams in my last company. This was something that they did incredibly, incredibly well, and I'm bringing it to ProQuo as a new opportunity for us. And so, a big part of it is, finding where your buyers go to professionally hang out is like the best way I put it. Right? Some are on LinkedIn, some are on Twitter. So many people are popping up on Clubhouse and different things like that. But finding ways, right, to like, and it's about creating engagement and awareness. I don't like the term social selling because it seems too pitchy. Mm-hmm. I kind of like refer to it as like social education, social engagement, where you're creating a lot of content that just addresses and talks to your buyers' challenges, pains, needs, opportunities. Position yourself as an expert, position yourself as knowledgeable, and it's just another touch point and it's another channel. I've heard from prospects directly saying, wow, like this really allowed me to humanize, right? Like kind of back to the sales experience or the customer experience. It humanized the rep, right? They make little jokes, their personality shines. It's an amazing way for you as a seller to kind of showcase like, hey, I'm not just some cold call or some email, like I'm a human and here's who I am. And building that relationship is big. But it's definitely one of those things that I've seen move deals through the funnel faster, create new, net new demos and meetings. It's done a lot of great things. I always refer to it as Project Stampede, right? Okay. Like if you think of a stampede, right? The more people that are doing it, the more noise you make, right? The more animals in a stampede, the louder that stampede is. And that's why I believe every single person in the organization should be doing it, right? It's free marketing. It's free impressions. And all you really need is for one thing to kind of go viral. And that can have you just never know the impact of it. So it's consistency. It's putting yourself out there. It's so awkward and weird. Like I posted something today and I was like, I don't like, this is just, I don't know. Like it was a big time imposter syndrome.
What
big
was
time,
the,
like, I don't
what
know.
did you post? What was it?
I posted something that was talking about like companies taking action about mental health, because
Okay.
here at ProQuo, we've released a couple new initiatives that are addressing that. And I was just like, wow, like one to shout out, like we're doing some really cool stuff to help that, but also two, like build awareness around other companies that are really taking action to support their people. But I was just like, I don't know, like I wasn't confident in it. And it's like, hey, it might tank, who knows, right? But at the same time, like, who cares? Like
Right.
it was me being authentic in myself, and that's really what matters. So I think it's incredibly helpful for a lot of different reasons, but I think the more consistent and the more people you get, banging that drum about the problems you solve, how great your product is, without being very salesy or pitchy, it's an amazing opportunity for businesses.
I love that, and I love the Stampede reference. It's now stuck in my head. And whenever we do employee advocacy at Oktopost, so now I know whenever I am going to pitch, I'm going to borrow that.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
It's great. So I have two last questions, maybe like 2.5 to be very
nice.
fair. But the next question I have is, you're great. We have a lot of fun, and your team, I'm sure they're really excited to have such a fearless and enthusiastic leader. What do you want most for your team at ProQuo AI this year?
I think twofold. I think one is I want them to feel like they're making a difference, right? Whether that's for our customers, whether that's for us helping to build our business. Like we're pre-Series A, we've got some very exciting and ambitious targets and goals to achieve. And so I think I want them to feel like the work and everything that they put into what we do, they feel like they're a huge part of that. They're a huge part of our success. I think that's one. And then the second I'd say is that they feel like they're growing both personally and professionally. Because again, I think that's super important for the long-term engagement of the team. And I think that's what people really look for. And it's something I think that I do pretty well. So I want to make sure that, my teams feel like, they're getting better every day, whether that's as a salesperson or just as a human being, like they're growing and they're developing, whatever that may be. So those are the two things I think are really important for me to ensure I'm delivering, for the team.
I think I think a big topic right now is employee retention. And I think both of those things that you hit on, I'd love to see more of that in leadership and the people that I speak with, because I think that plays a huge role in making employees feel like they're at the right place and retaining them, especially in today's world where it's an employee market. So thank you for sharing that. And my last question is one which I know everyone looks forward to. They wait for this one. But and it's hard because your LinkedIn profile is quite informative. And I'm telling you, if you Google Kevin, great things come up. You've got a great podcast. But I'm hoping what you can share with us right now is something that none of us are going to be able to learn if they look you up on LinkedIn, or if they look or listen to any of your podcasts or blogs or articles written by you or for you or about you. What can you share with us today that is authentically Kevin?
That's a really good question. Such a good question. Where do I go with this one? It's interesting because I think if so for people that know me really well, and I think one of the things that I think is a skill, I think it's a strength of mine. But I don't take myself very serious. And so, I think especially to like my grandfather, for example, I know how good he's feeling based on how much he makes fun of me. Right. So the more he makes fun of me and represents me, I'm like, okay, he's doing well. Like he's feeling really good right now. When he's quiet, and that's when I have to be a little concerned. But the budding end of the joke for me a lot of the times is when I was younger, I broke my collarbone a lot. So like my left collarbone, I broke 3 times, like twice in football, once snowboarding.
Okay.
Yep. I broke my right collarbone when I was a little kid playing soccer. Like this much bigger, older kid fell on me and I broke my collarbones like 4 times, which is just an absolutely ridiculous thing to have happen to anybody. And so every single time,
I can't imagine 4 times.
Yeah. And like, I like to think I'm a pretty athletic guy, and like, I don't fall a lot, like, and so any single time like something happens to me, my friends are always like, is your collarbone okay? Like, you all right? Or if we're like watching a football game and we see somebody get injured and they grab their shoulder, like, Kev, you know exactly what's wrong there, right? I'm like, thanks guys. Like, yep, I'm that guy. Broke his collarbone 1,000,000 times.
Maybe that's the secret sauce to sales success that nobody knows.
Yeah. But unfortunately, my collarbone's like crooked now. Like, it's an absolute mess. But maybe there's a correlation. That's a new LinkedIn poll. Like, how many salespeople have broken their collarbone? And it'll unfortunately be just
me. And hitting target.
And hitting target, yes.
I love it. That might be the best fun fact I've heard all day.
Okay, good. I'm glad.
Awesome. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today. And my half question is just this. Where are you most active? If people listening in want to learn more about you, want to find you, talk to you, learn more about ProQuo AI, what's the best channel to reach you? Where can we connect?
Yeah, so probably the easiest is LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on there. I try and respond to a lot of the, messages and invites and all that sort of stuff. But I'll tell you, do something fun. If you want to reach out to me, do something fun, do a video, do something creative. Like
don't break your collarbone though. That's a little.
Don't trip and break your collarbone. That would be. But if you have a cool story about breaking your collarbone, we can chat all about that and enjoy each other's miseries. But no, hit me up on LinkedIn. Love to kind of share and talk shop on these types of topics. So please reach out to me.
Awesome. Kevin, thanks so much.
Thank you. This was great.
Thanks for tuning in to the Radically Transparent podcast brought to you by Oktopost, the only social media management and employee advocacy platform architected for B2B. I'm Jennifer Gutman, your host and director of social strategy here at Oktopost. And if you love today's show, we'd love if you subscribe, rate, and give a raving review wherever you get your podcasts. For more discussion on B2B social media marketing, be sure to follow Oktopost on LinkedIn. And of course, to gain access to all our free social media marketing and employee advocacy resources, head on over to our website, www.oktopost.com. Until next time.